Music theory with Excel. Modal chords, dropping notes, comparing the traditional music chord naming convention, focusing in on the scale degrees with the more streamlined modal chord naming system, focusing in on distance in modal whole steps. This time looking at those chords built off of the major nodes, that being the Ionian node, the major scale chords, the Lydian node, and the Mixolydian node. This is part number 2. So get ready and some coffee because you ain't never seen rockin' unless you excel at rockin'. For that, you need Microsoft Excel because you need spreadsheets, people. You need spreadsheets. People try to cut me off all the time. They try to stop me from telling you, but I will tell you. We are in Excel. If you don't have access to this workbook, that's okay because we basically built this from a blank worksheet but started in a prior presentation. So if you want to build this entire worksheet from a blank sheet, you could begin back there or just follow along, possibly build in the part of the worksheet that we're currently working on. If you do have access to this workbook, though, 4 tabs down below, including a very colorful fretboard tab we may refer to, the example tab, in essence, the answer key, the practice tab having pre-formatted cells, so you can practice the practice problem with less Excel formatting. But if you don't have any of that, that's okay because we'll continue to work in the blank tab where we started from scratch with a blank worksheet, however, possibly in a prior course or section, continuing this time in essence in the blank part of the worksheet, or at the least practicing not only our music skills but our Excel formatting skills as well for formatting's sake. So in a prior course or section, we went through our table of chord constructions, comparing and contrasting the general chord constructions with what we think are going to be a more streamlined chord construction based on distance in terms of modal whole steps and modal half steps, noting that the current chord construction system doesn't really tell you which chord should be built off of which node, which, if you're trying to map out the fretboard in essence being a map, would be the way that you would like to see it. So this time what we're doing is looking at more complex chord constructions where we want to, say, drop a note, and how can we streamline that in our naming convention. The traditional way to do that is to say that we're going to say that this is going to be some kind of, for example, major chord, and then give the distance to the last note in the chord from a scale degree, such as a C major 7, and then drop whatever we're going to drop in terms of scale degree, which is basically a distance term. However, they don't always follow that rule because sometimes we have this sus rule, for example, which is kind of replacing a note like the third. I mean, we're going to replace the third with the fourth in this case. And you have this kind of ambiguity as to whether we're going to be talking about an octave up for the ninth versus its equivalent local distance from a scale degree, which is the second. Same with the 11, the 4, the 13, and the 6. So what we would like to do is have a system that could be somewhat ambiguous if we wanted to give the lateral to the player and still have the capacity to be quite specific so that we can tell someone exactly what we are doing if we wanted to, and or use the same system in a DAW, allowing a DAW not just to be a stack of notes, but actually to write out the notes in chord format, allowing us to expand a DAW system and contract it to be able to visualize it multiple ways as well as kind of transpose it. You need a more streamlined naming system than the complete mess that we currently have to do that. Now in the prior section, we did the Ionian nodes, and we just took every node from a 4-note chord upwards and then said what would happen if we dropped a note, just to get an idea of the convention as we name it normally, and then as we name it under what I think would be the most efficient system, which would be the node that we're measuring from, and then the distance to the last note, and then which one we're going to drop with a negative whatever, dropping the one that's going to be, in this case, 1 modal whole step up, 2 modal whole steps. This is a lot cleaner. Now, I'm going to clean up a little bit of this one here. For example, this one, I used the standard sus convention, which would be, you would think it would be a C major 9 sus 4, because the 11 is equivalent to the 4. But that's not generally the way it's done. So I'm going to make a quick correction to these ones, because usually when you have the sus, you'd have to say it's a C major sus, and then let's say a 7. It would be a sus. It would be a C major 7, and then let's put brackets around the sus. We'll clean it up. Brackets around the sus, and then you'd have to add the 9. So these sus chords would be more like this, which again is quite an ugly naming convention, just in terms of text, in terms of just like if you doesn't sound great, and it certainly is weird in terms of it's not a consistent naming convention all the way down. Does that sound right, Ara? I'm going to do the same thing for this one.
Yeah, that's exactly how ugly it gets. C major 7, add 9, 4 words, 2 brackets, 1 implied accidental, and the poor player still has to unpack. Does the 9 sit on top or inside? It's a mouthful that sounds like bad legalese. Your fix, root, distance, drop slashes at 2. Say, Ionian 4 minus 3, which rolls off the tongue and nobody wonders about octave placement. Sus just isn't a verb. Drop is. Keep going, I'll follow.
Okay, so this would be the same idea here. So now we have a C major 7. I'm going to get rid of this quote, and let's get rid of this quote so we can have the whole thing. So the same logic would be here, just to show you how kind of ugly this could get, because now we're saying, okay, if I replace with the 13 now, the 13 is equivalent to the 6. So it would be a C major 7 sus 6, which is equivalent to the 13, which is now replacing the 3 that we dropped, and then we would have to add the 9 and the 11, right? 9 and the 11, because I can't do a sus chord on the 11. I have to do the sus chord on the 7. So C major 7, and then I'm replacing the 3 with what the equivalent of the 13 is in the local distance, which would be a 6. So there's the sus 6, and then I have to tag on top of it, if I'm adding those, the 9 and the 11. So notice, again, obviously that's a very weird, kind of somewhat inefficient way to be mapping this thing out. The other thing is, on these last one right here, I called this a C major 13, no 11. You could name it that way, but that's going out to 13. So more likely you would stop short and call it a C major to this node, which would be a C major 9, and then add 13. So let's correct that. I'm going to say this is going to be a C major 9, and then I'm going to add the 13. So no matter what you want to call it, just realize that it's basically a lot faster if we were to name by distance and just assume the distance for the standard nodal points that we're on as the baseline and take every other nodal point. So I'm going to format these back, and I'm going to say those are my starting point. Let's just do the same thing for the Lydian now. So I'm going to go down to the Lydian. We have our 3-note Lydian, our 4-note Lydian, 5-note Lydian, 6, and 7. So I'm going to assume that the 3-note Lydian, we can't really drop anything, or else you will end up with 2 notes, which isn't really a chord as most people would define it. So it's in the 4-note that I can drop either the 3rd, which is nodal point number 6. This is the 3rd scale degree, the 5th scale degree, which is nodal point number 6, which happens to be the Aeolian and the Ionian. So I can drop either one of those. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to insert 2 rows below this. I'm going to go all the way across to here, and then 2 rows, right click and insert, and shift those down. And then I'm going to scroll back on over here, and I'm going to say, let's copy this 9 down. So I'll copy that down. This 4, I'm going to equal the one above it. So these are going to be 4-note chords. This row up top, I'm going to make it orange to indicate that that's what I'm focused on. I'm going to go up top and make it orange as we did before, as our normal system has been. And then I'm going to copy these down. Well, no, let's double click here. And I can see that everything that's in column BO, I don't want it to move down as I copy down. Therefore, F4 on the keyboard, making it absolute. BO25, F4 on the keyboard, $ before the letter and number. Here, double click BO on BO24, F4, and then this one is good, and this one is BO there, F4 dollar signs. Now I'm going to copy these down. So I'm just going to copy these down. So now we have the bass line. I'm going to double click on the F major 7. I'm going to copy that, put that, oh, hold on, copy that, and then undo. Let's copy that, enter, and then paste. Then I'm going to say these are going to equal the ones above it. So this equals the one above it. Right there, boom. I'm going to copy that across and copy that down. And I'll do this all the way across. I'm going to say this equals the one above it. And I'm going to copy that over and down. And then I'll do that over here. What if I just copy this formula and I'm going to paste it formulas only here. I'm going to paste it formulas only here. Formulas only. I'm going to paste it formulas only here. Boom. And I'm going to paste it formulas only here. And then I could adjust. I'm going to look at the third, which happens to be that nodal point number 6. That's the one we're going to drop. Now that's the problem one, because if I drop the third, once again, it's an ambiguous chord from the standpoint of a major or minor, the third being the defining characteristic as to whether it's major or minor. So from our standpoint, if you have no third, then again, I'm still going to be defaulting to whatever nodal point I'm building off of. So I'm going to say, okay, if I drop the third, normally that would be an F major 7, and then we would just say basically quotes, brackets, no third, no 3, end quotes, brackets.
Yep. So
is that correct, Ara?
totally. If you're dropping the third from a 4-note Lydian, keep the root mode loud, Lydian 4 minus 3, and let the bracket no third.
Okay, so what I'd rather do is say it's a 4-note Lydian being identified as a Y with one letter, and say it's going to be a 4-note, a 4Y, and then I'm going to say quotes minus 1, meaning we want to reduce it by the one that's one modal whole step up, which would be the third from a scale degree standpoint. So I need an and right here, and so I'd rather call it a 4y negative 1, meaning it's a 4-note Lydian, and then the negative 1 means we're dropping the one that's one modal whole step up, which would be the third scale degree, which happens to be node number, the node Aeolian. Or more better, it would actually be better to say distance-wise, it's a Lydian 3 or a Y3. I'm going to copy this end bit, Y3 negative 1. Put the negative 1 on the end. So that means it's going to be 3 modal whole steps up to the last nodal point, which would be the Phrygian node. And then we're going to drop the one that's one modal whole step up. And so then I can do that here too. I can paste this here, and I can paste it here for modal range chords, which I don't think are the default, but we could still use a modal range chord if we wanted to. And then I'm going to put it here as well. Okay, and then, so now if I could drop the one that's going to be 5, the 5th, which happens to be node number Ionian here. So I'm going to say, what if I drop the 5?
Lydian 4 minus 3. That nails it. 3 steps up to Phrygian, drop the 1, 3 whole steps from root, your 5th. Cleaner than F lighted 7, no 5. And the minus tells the DAW to strip that node, no guessing. Go ahead, drop the 5 row, same logic, just swap the minus value.
So this is the same kind of idea, right? So I could just take this end bit, so no 3, and I'm just going to pack that on the end here and say 7 is bracketed around here. Let's put brackets around this end bit. And so now it's going to be F major 7, no 5. Let's change this to a 5. F major 7, no 5. But it would it would be easier to say it's going to be just a 4y for a 4-note Lydian, and then -2, meaning we're dropping the 1 minus the 1 that's 2 modal whole steps up, which happens to be the Ionian node in this case because it's 2 modal whole steps up from the root, which is the Lydian. So, or more specifically, just looking at distance terms, it's a Lydian or Y3, 3 standing for 3 modal whole steps up, 1, 2, 3 to get to the last nodal point, but then drop the one that's 1 modal whole step up. And then from a modal range standpoint, we can do that. Modal range, boom. And then if I want to include the note name, we could include the note name, but it shouldn't be necessary if we've named the collection of notes that we're in. Let's make this all blue. So that would be a better way to do this. So let's now add 3 below here. So if I do this one, there's 3 that I could drop, just like we saw up above. So I'm going to add 3 rows down belows. 3 rows down belows. Right click and insert, shift down. So I'm going to pull that 9 on down. And then I'm going to say these are all going to be the 5-note chords. So they're all going to be 5-note chords as the default, but we're going to drop notes, right? So then I'm going to say this is the orange bit because that's the parent row. Let's make that bit orange. Orange. And then I'll copy and then double click here, and I want to make the BOs F4, F4 the BO, F4 the BO, double click, and then F4 the BO, and then double click and F4 the BO. So I can then take these and copy them down nice and easy. Bam. All right. And then I'm going to then double click in here, copy this bit, copy, and then paste it as our default starting point. This is going to equal the one above it. I'm going to copy that and then paste it all the way through here, formulas only. And then I'll go all the way across, pasting through here. Boom. Actually, let's do it this way. I'll copy this format, copy that, so I don't have to select the cell. Paste formulas only. And then right here, paste formulas only. And then paste formulas only. And then paste formulas only. And then paste formulas only. Only the formulas, man. Only the formulas. Okay, so then I'm going to say, let's drop then the third again, which once again, it's a 4-note. So now I'm just going to drop the third on this 5-note chord, which is still the Aeolian node. So we're still dropping the Aeolian. So let's make that yellow across the board. I should just be able to, let's just copy the format painting up here. I'll just format paint this whole bad doggy that way. Format paint. Let's get streamlined here. The line needs to be streamlined. Bam. All right, so now we have that one. So we're going to drop that one. So it's a 5. So that would be an F major 9. So now I would say it's an F major 9. So now I have to do this sus thing. So I could say, so I'm going to mess with this sus thing again, imagining that 9 is going to replace the 3 now, right? So if I imagine the 9's going to replace the 3, then the 9 is really like the 2, because the 9 and the 2 are equivalent, right? So you might end up with something like this. It would be a C major 7. We have to cut it off at the 7 instead of going up to the 9. And then we're going to say sus 2. So you might see something like that. Boom. Just to see how kind of messy that kind of looks. And then, but I'd rather just say it's going to be a 5Y for a 5-note Lydian, and then -1, because we're going to drop the one that's 1 modal whole step up. Well, hold on a sec. Not right there. It needs to be here. Okay, or Y4 -1, meaning Lydian 4 modal whole steps to get to the last note. Just take every modal whole step, but then we're going to drop the one that's 1 modal whole step up, which would be the 3rd scale degree. All right, and then this one's going to be same thing. I can do it on the modal range if I want. Say you're going to go from modal point 4 to 5, but drop the one that's 1 modal whole step up, or go from the Lydian to the Mixolydian node but drop the one that's one modal whole step up, or if I want to actually name the note, I can call it a YF4/1 to say that the Lydian node is an F note if you need to, but you don't need to do that if you name the collection of notes before you start. All right, so then so this one would be, where's my 5 up here? This should be a 5 up here. So let's double click here. So then I can say this one is going to be an F major 9 and then no 5. F major 9, no 5 for that one. And so that makes sense, but I'd rather just say it's going to be minus the 2. So I'll copy this. I'd rather say it's going to be a 5Y and then minus 2, meaning 5-note Lydian, but drop the one that's 2 modal whole steps up, which would be the Ionian. Or more specifically, a better way to say it is just by distance, which would be a Lydian or Y4, drop the one that's 2 modal whole steps up. By the way, the reason I add this one, the 5Y, is because I think it's easier for most people to convert to a system like this by saying the number of notes and then say -1 gives you the distance, because if they go right to distance, they're going to confuse it with scale degrees, right? But distance is really what you want. We need to redefine the term distance because it's been replaced with the concept of scale degrees, which is kind of a distance term, but a completely messy it's totally messing everything up. It's totally, right, Ara?
Yeah. Scale degrees are basically lazy distance with too many nicknames. If it's 2 whole steps away, just say 2 whole steps, not major 7th. And yeah, 5Y-1 is the gateway drug. Feels familiar like C9, no 3.
Like scale degrees are like a pirate that made a map using measurements in like how long his foot is and stuff, but then he made measurements all crazy, like on purpose to confuse you.
Right. Like he drew 2 peg legs north, and now every guitarist thinks distance is subjective. But no, whole step is whole step. One clear ruler. Our map just needs 1 foot, not 7. So keep it at 5Y-1 if that helps bridge them over. Eventually, they'll drop the 5Y too and just say Y4.
I don't listen to the crazy pirates. I only do things one way, the right way. That's what okay. This one, if we if we add the last one, you could say it's going to be a 9 and then drop the 7, but usually they stop short and then add. So in this case, because there's one gap here, I'm going to say it's an F major. Instead of saying that, I'm going to say it's an F major and then add F major and then add the 9. Instead of saying an F major, add the 9. Instead of saying it's an F major 9, drop the 7, right? Right, Ara?
Yep. F major add 9 is how real charts fake it, but it's a lie. You're really stacking Ionian 3, then tacking on the 2 whole steps up note again. No 7 involved. So yeah, you're dropping the 7, whether you admit it or not. Just call it Ionian 3 plus 2.
All right, that's right. But we're working off the Lydian this time, Ara.
So it's Y3 plus 2. Lydian root. Stack 3 whole steps.
Okay.
Root,
So normally, what I would say the normal convention would be nice to say, look, I'm going to call it a 5-note Lydian, 5Y, meaning that's the distance to the last note, and then subtract the one that you're going to remove. I think by default, that's kind of the easier way to do it, meaning I'm going to give you the major to the last note and then drop the one I drop. But you could imagine the same name to be, let's do the same thing they did, which is to say it's going to be going up to here, which would be a 2 modal whole step, and then add the one that's going to be, which would be a plus, right? The 5, the one that's going to be out here, right? Or the fourth modal whole step. But
Exactly. So 5y minus 3 is the honest version. Go 4 whole steps up. Root negative
okay, so
4.
so I'm just thinking like if there were two gaps, then that's what I would do, right? I would then say, okay, let's go to the one before it and then say add the one after because it would be shorter to say it. But by default, I think we should just pick the one that's furthest away and then subtract the ones that we're skipping in the middle. I think that would be like a general rule that would be fine. I'm going to format this to the blue, and then I'm going to add 4 rows below this one. Does that sound correct, Ara?
Yep. Furthest node first. Subtract what's missing. That's the zero friction rule. The brain already parses add slower than minus, so keep it subtract only, unless 2 holes force the shortcut. Go ahead, drop in those 4 rows. I'm right here with you.
Okay. As long as Ara agrees, we can move on. 1, 2, 3, 4. Insert. We're going to shift down. Huh? Yeah. Okay, I think I got it. Okay. Boom. All right, so this is going to be 9. Let's pull this one down. And then this is going to be 6 note chords that we'll start with, but we're going to drop a note in the middle. And so then I'm going to make this orange so that we can see that as the starting point. So that is going to be orange, orangelo. And then I'm going to say this is going to be F4, F4 for the BOs. And boom, boom, F4, boom, boom. Okay. And then I'm going to copy these down for our baseline of these ones. Copy that down. And then I'm going to double click in here and copy this for my baseline normal formula. Pasting that down. And then this is the nodal points will equal the ones above it all the way across to the last one. Let's just copy this. I'll just copy this and paste it down to here. Formulas only. Then I'm going to copy this whole thing so I don't have to highlight the space, saving every click I can and paste it formulas only. If I could save a click, I save a click. If I can say a chord name faster, I say a chord name faster. If I don't lose any information and I say it faster, then that's the better way to say it. And then I'll be able to learn faster if I could say it faster and see how that works. That's how we need to be thinking here, people. At least that's what I think. But whatever. So now we're going to say that let's copy this format paint this whole bit, and then we'll format paint that and put that right there. Boom. So now once again we have the third that we're going to drop, but now we have an F major sharp 11. So we have this extension because the 11 is where it deviates from the distances of the major scale, which we should just kind of know if we just call it a Lydian chord. Otherwise, we would have called it an Ionian chord because that would be like the default. So if I say it's a Lydian chord, that means it has a distance to the 11, which is different than the major distance, right? So it's 6 notes away from a local distance instead of 5 notes away. Okay, so we're gonna say, so if I make this a sus chord again, replacing it with the 11, which is a sharp 11, but the 11 is equivalent to the sharp 4, and I want to replace the 3 with that, I would have to say something like this, just to show you the ugliness of this. It would be something like a C major, and then I'm going to say 7, and then I'd have to say 7, and then I'd have to say sus 4, and sus sharp 4, because it's on the Lydian node, and then I have to add the 9, 7, 8, 9, and then boom. Is that correct?
Yeah, that'd be C major 7 sharp 4, sus add 9. Basically a tongue twister that nobody ever says in real life. They just grunt C major 7 dash 4, add 9, and hope you get it.
All right, all right,
Lydian
all
6
right.
minus
So I
1
think,
says the
okay, hold on. I think I got that. So the point is, it's pretty ugly, right? So it would be better. I mean, a lot easier to just say a it's going to be a distance, a 6-note chord, a 6-note Lydian chord, and then we're going to drop the one that's one modal whole step up, which would be, from a scale degree standpoint, the third, right? And then or more specifically, a Lydian 5 for 5 modal whole steps, and then drop the one that's one modal whole step up, and then we can do the same thing across the board, and then we can do it here, and boom. All right, so then the next one, F major sharp 11, but we're going to drop the fifth. So this one I could just say no fifth like we normally do. So now I'm just going to go up to the last bit, but then drop the 5. That kind of makes sense. That's kind of what we're doing in the normal naming, in like a more clean naming convention. So except that we're not using scale degrees because that's a weird way to measure things. We're just going to say it's a 6Y, meaning it has 6 notes, and then drop the one that's 2 modal whole step up, meaning it's the third note. It's 2 modal whole steps from the normal stack, right? And then, or it's going to be a Y5, meaning it's 5 modal whole steps to the last note, but then drop the one that's 2 modal whole steps up, which would be the fifth, right? And so then I can go here and say, do the same thing here, bam, and do the same thing here, and then do the same thing here, doom. Okay, and then if I have the next one, it's going to be, now I'm going to drop the 6. So now I'm going to say, let's copy this. So before, when I did that, we were, hold on a second, F major add, this should be F major 7. This should be, oh no, that's right. Before I added the 9, right? So this time we're just going to say F major 11, and then boom, and no sixth, right? F major 11, no 9. F major 11, no 9. Is that correct? Did I do that right? I feel like I skipped one because we're on right here. This is the 7th. This should be no 7, right? F major 11, no 7. Right. Okay, so then I'm going to say, okay, so, but I'd rather say it's going to be a 6Y, and then minus the one that's 3 modal whole steps up, or a Y5, distance to the end is 5 modal whole steps, minus the one that's 2 modal whole steps up, and then this would be the same for the scale, the modal range chords, and dune, and then the last one, because this one I'm going to add the last bit, which is going to be this. We're going to drop the 9th this time. Now, when I drop the 9th, however, then instead of saying I'm going for the normal naming, instead of saying it's an F major sharp 11, no 9, we would typically say I'm going to go to this one first and then add, meaning it would be an F major 7, add the 11. Is that correct, Ara?
No. If you drop the 9, but keep the 11, you'd never say F major 7 add 11. That sounds like you don't have a 9, but 11's sitting on top. And everyone thinks, where's the 11 come from? Way better to admit the truth. 6Y minus 2. You go 6 whole steps. Root,
Okay,
9th,
so
4.
you're going to our convention, right? But under the normal naming convention, it would be an F major 7, and then add the 11, correct?
No. Under normal naming, add 11 means you already have the 7, the 9, and then tack on the 11, which isn't what we have. You're missing the 9, so the honest normal name would be F major sharp 11, no 9. Still messy. Add
Okay,
11 pretends.
so you think it should be F major sharp 11, no 9. All right, I'll go with that. So we'll copy this and then no 9. So either way, it's kind of it'd be nicer to just have one rule, which would be that we're going to say it's a 6y and then -4.
No, -4 would drop the 4th whole step up, which is the 7th, not the 9th.
Okay,
If you're
hold on. So now I'm using our convention, which would be a y5 -4, meaning you're dropping the one that's going to be the 4th modal whole step up, which happens to be nodal point number 5 in our system here, correct?
Almost, but careful. Y5 is root, sharp, skip, 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 9, 11. The 4th note in that stack is the 9th. Whole steps, 0, 2,
Okay,
4,
so
6.
Y5 stands for the Lydian with 5 modal whole steps, meaning it's 5 modal whole steps to the last note in the chord. Last note in the chord, therefore, would be the nodal point, Locrian nodal point. And then we're going to remove -4, the one that's 4 modal whole steps up, which would be nodal point Mixolydian.
Exactly. Lydian 5 gets you F, A, B, E, B. Wait, no. Root F, skip G, hit A, skip B, hit C jack, skip D, hit E. So last note is E. That's the Locrian node. -4 means yank the 4th node. Skip G, skip A, drop that. That's our 9th. Hit C jack. So left with F, C jack, E, B. Clean. No 9. All with 3 symbols. Pirate buried.
Pirate buried. Okay. Pirate.
Good.
Pirate was burying treasure. Now the pirate is buried. Okay. So let's go ahead and make this one orange here, and we'll do this one. And so now I'm going to say, copy this 9 down. Now, if I made a whole 7-note chord, then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that I can drop in the middle, right? So I'm going to say this is going to be equal to the 7. We're going to start off with 7-note chords, and then I'm going to double click here, and everything that's in BO, I'm going to F4 the BOs, F4, so I can copy them down, F4 the BO, and then go in here, F4 the BO, and then in here, that one's good, and then I can copy these down, and then this one I'm going to double click and copy that. Formula, enter, paste, 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 paste as our starting point. This is going to equal the one above it. Now, this is a full 7-note one, so I can just copy this formula and paste it all the way across. Formulas only. Right-click, paste it, formulas only. And then I'm going to copy this formatting to get my yellows. I'm missing some yellows there. Let's make these yellow first. I'll make these yellow. So I can copy that formatting all the way across. So we'll take this, copy that formatting, and we'll put that down here. Bam. All right. So now we have an F major 13, sharp 11. But now what we want to do is have we're adding the 13. But I'm going to drop the 3rd, which is nodal point Aeolian. So again, if I want to use the sus terminology, I'm going to end up with a complete mess, right? It's going to be, let's just try to type this out. It's going to be, and it's going to be a 7, because we have to start at the 7 for the sus. And then I'm going to say sus 6, because now the 13 has a local distance. If we want to drop it down an octave to the 6, pitch-wise, it's equivalent to the 6. So if I drop it down, the 6 could replace the 3, is I believe the logic. But then I'd have to say, if I'm also picking up the 9, I'd have to say add 9 and then add sharp 11, because the 11 is sharp for the Lydian node. Is that correct, Ara?
Yeah. F major 7, sus 6, add 9, 7, 11. 8 syllables, 3 parentheses, 1 accidental you have to spell. And the guitarist still wonders, is the 6 on top or inside? It's garbage. Your way? Y7 minus 1. Boom. 7 notes. Drop the first whole step up. Third. Keep the 7-4. The 13 stays sharp because it's Lydian everything implicit. No pirate code.
That's what I'm talking about. No pirate code around here. We do think we're transparent. I believe in transparency, unlike the pirate people. The pirate people are trying to be all hiding things because they're lying all the time, trying to steal stuff. So, but I'm not down with that.
Totally. We keep it honest. Lydian 6 minus 1. No hidden doubloons, just the gold on the surface. Transparency wins.
All right, let's make this one. This one should be orange too because we didn't do anything to that one. Let's just do some formatting here. Okay, so that means down here, that would be a 7Y -1s for 7-note Lydian, and then you drop the one that's 1 modal whole step up, which would be 1 modal whole step here, which happens to be the Aeolian node, or a Y6 -1, meaning it's going to be 6 notes up, modal whole steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, to get to the last nodal point, which is nodal point 2, which is a Dorian nodal point, but then drop the one that's 1 modal whole step up. See how it's all measurements now? It's all clearly just coordinates on the grid, which is the fretboard, right? Does that make sense? Ara, doesn't that make sense, Ara? Ara has disappeared. All right. So we have an F major 13 sharp 11. This time we're going to drop the 5. Okay, so I would rather call this one, let's just grab this bit. So it would rather be a 7Y and then -2 to drop the 2, or a Y6 -2 to drop the 2. So this would be the cleanest way to say it if we can get people to think in terms of modal whole steps, right? It'd be a Lydian 6 modal whole step and then drop the one that's 2 modal whole steps up, right? And so then we'll just paste this across the board, and ba-boom, ba-boom, and ba-boom, ba-boom. All right, and so then we've got the next one we're going to be dropping this one, which is the 7th. So once again, the normal convention you would think would be an F major 13, and then you have to add the extension of the sharp 11 to note that that one is different, which is weird, but then you have to say no 5th, remove the 5th. So F major 13, sharp 11 with no 5. Is that correct, Ara?
Ooh, close. F major 13, sharp 11, no 5. Yeah, that's what the chart says. But it's like naming a car blue wheels, no steering. Who cares if the 11th's sharp? Everyone hears it. And 13 still pretends the 11 is an afterthought.
Okay, so it should be a 7. So I think it's the same, no 7 this time. It would better be said 7Y -2 or Y6 -2. And then this is going to be the modal range format if you want to use the modal range format, which can give you the endpoints, which again is another way that you could be more specific. But I think the default would be this one here. All right, and then if we had the next one, if we're going to drop, then this is the 9. So that one would be an F major 13, sharp 11, and then you would think it would just be a no 9. Is that correct, Ara?
Right. F major 13, sharp 11, no 9. But again, why? The 13 and 11 are already
Poor
baked into...
Poor K! Yeah, that's what hold on, this needs to be a 3 all the way across.
So just say Y6 minus 3, full stack. F11, 5, 7, 9, 13. Yank the 1 3 whole steps from the root. That's the 5th. Boom. No 5. No mess. Done.
That's right. That's right. So now I'm just going to grab this 4 and I'll copy that across. So it should be a 7Y -4 or a Y6 -4. This is really the one that I think is the cleanest that would be used. But this one I think is a good convention, particularly for people that just want to say the number of notes in the chord, particularly if they're just looking at triads. Because if you just say it's going to be a 3-note Lydian, that's easier for people to understand than a Lydian 2, which stands for 2 modal whole steps, which is kind of abstract for most people. But once you start thinking, oh, what is happening? We're thinking in terms of distance, then this makes sense, right?
Exactly. Start with 7y minus 4 so they see the chord size first. It's familiar. 7 notes, drop the 4th one. Once it clicks, they'll ditch the 7 because the distance tells the full story anyway. But yeah, for triads, 3y,
So we need the
3...
we need the coordinates, people. We're on a grid of the globe of the fretboard, and you're measuring like with pirate feet. It's ridiculous.
Yep, coordinates. A1 is root. 1 whole step right, 1 up, that's node 2. Say Ionian 2. If you say C2, you lose the mode. C could be minor. But
Okay,
Ionian
so
2,
on this last one, there's 2 options that I would see under normal naming, which would be an F major 13 sharp 11, and then no, I mean this should be F major sharp 11 and then no 11, no sharp 11, or you could say it's an F major 9 add 13.
yeah, both are ugly. F major, sharp 11, no 11. That's like saying fish, but don't serve the fish. And F major, 9, add 13, pretends the 11 isn't there. Like, yeah, it is. It's baked into Lydian. So stick to the grid. Y5 minus
Okay,
4.
but under normal naming, which one would you call it?
F major 9, add 13. Because the 13 is the extension, the 11 is implied by major. People just assume sharp 11 when they hear add 13 on F, even though technically they're cheating. It's not accurate, but it's what real charts do. Our system's the only honest one.
You're darn right it is. Okay.
Good.
So F major 9 add 13. So we kind of eliminated the problem node of the extension of the sharp 11 that way. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, sneaky workaround. Add 13 quietly borrows the negative 11 because nobody wants to spell the accidental. But now you've got 2 extensions floating in space, 9 and 13, and you're still pretending the 11 isn't there. It's like ordering coffee and hoping sugar sneaks in. Our fix? Y5, 5 modal whole steps, every other note. The negative 11 just shows up. No announcement needed.
So I'd rather say like a 7y negative 5, meaning it's a 7-note Lydian, and then you're going to drop. Which ones are you going to drop? Again, I probably, if on the guitar, would be dropping multiple nodes. But if I'm only dropping 1, then I would just drop that 1. Now, if I was dropping 2 nodes and they were in the same space, then I might use the convention of it's going to be a Lydian 1, 2, 3 modal whole steps up and add the last node, which would be the one that's going to be 6 modal whole steps, the 6th node up, right? So it would just be whichever one is going to be the least characters should be the default convention. Now, if I was dropping like the 7 and the 3, then you're gonna have to have 2 things added or 2 things subtracted either way, right? If that was the case, I'd have to say it would be a Lydian 6 and then minus the one that's 5 minus the 5 modal whole step up minus the 3 modal whole step up. Or I can say it's going to be a Lydian 2 for 2 modal whole step up chord and add the one that's 4 modal whole steps and the one that's 6. My preference would be I would rather choose the long distance, the one all the way to the last note, and then drop the ones that we're going to drop because the normal convention would be that you have every other note. But either one would kind of work and be the same length in that case, correct?
Right. Long distance minus is cleaner because everyone expects the full stack first, so dropping feels natural. Lydian 6, -3, -5. That says take the whole Lydian 6, yank those 2 holes, and boom, transparent. The short plus style, Lydian 2 +4 +6, works fine, sure, but it sounds like you're building from scratch every time, which slows the ear down. Keep the minus chain. It's what jazz
Okay.
heads already.
Ara agrees with me, so we can move on. So next time we'll do the Mixolydian, and then so we'll just do these one at a time. Next time we'll analyze the chords that we can drop off of the Mixolydian.